Coronavirus was just the beginning. Wow, that's bleak. Or the tagline of a failed Nick Cage action movie that gets released on January 3rd. But this tale is set during the less than joyous summer of 2020, when me, my wife, our sons, and less chubby Australian shepherd moved into the Delaware home of my youth for half a year, where we experienced our own modified, truncated version of the 10 plagues. And that's not even counting COVID. For those who weren't forced to go to Hebrew school or miss Cecil B. DeMille's 10 Commandments, quick lesson. The 10 plagues were sent from God to Moses to force Pharaoh to release the Jews from slavery. During Passover Seder, after way too much matzah, the story of the plagues is sort of like the climax. We chant each plague in Hebrew and English while dipping our fingers in wine. For instance, arov, wild animals. Got it? There will be a quiz. Our Delaware plagues might have been lower in quantity and production value, but every week we were back in the sales tax-free state. There seemed to be another, dare I say, biblical-like oddity knocking on our door. Barad, hailstorms. In olden times, if you piss off God, boom, firestorms, hail. If you're in Delaware during 2020, you get 1 inch of rain in 5 minutes, a tree falling on the house you're trying to sell, and then a frickin' tornado. During my years away, Delaware apparently became the understudy for Kansas. Thankfully, nobody died from this unprecedented phenomenon. Not that it didn't have its white knuckle moments. Getting an iPhone message telling us to run to the basement, that's a lot. We later discovered the tornado was a 1/4 mile from our house. Even scarier, it was a few hundred yards from our neighbor's house, Joe Biden. Yes, that Joe Biden. We lived right down the road from his place. Don't be impressed, it's Delaware. We all fucking live down the road from him. The thing is, our Blue Hen State does not get tornadoes. So why did this happen? Why did the elections almost end in a Wizard of Oz plot twist? I have a theory. You might call it a conspiracy, but I'll go with theory. Do you recall who was our president in the summer of 2020? I wish I could agree. Just because weather manipulation was in Superman 3 and one of the lesser Bond films doesn't mean I'm wrong. Hoshech, darkness. The tornado came and went. The darkness of power outages, however, remained for 6 days and 7 nights. It wasn't quite 40 years wandering the desert bad, but a week without Netflix in 2020 was really close. Dom, blood in the water. Thanks to the twisters, blood would have been an improvement over what substance initially came out of our faucets. Kinim, arbe, lice, locusts. Have you been in the East Coast during the summer? They got all that shit. The vermin might not destroy the crops, but they ruin every outdoor meal you're trying to have with socially distant friends. More than a couple of these winged little creatures bit me on places unmentionable, creating lovely bumps that looked and felt just like another plague. Barad, boils. Svardeya, frogs. Delaware doesn't have swamps. So imagine my surprise as I was walking my Australian shepherd, and before I can even get out the thought, hey, is that a frog? The creature was gone. I panicked, called my wife. Lauren, Fezzik just devoured a fucking frog. Like her MBA had prepared her for this reptilian emergency more than my MFA. As she began to look up doggy ERs, I noticed something in Fezzik's mouth. He didn't swallow the frog. He was carrying him. New friends. I went into dog whisperer mode. pleading with him, "Let my Kermit go." When he suddenly gagged, coughed out the frog, and vomited. Apparently this frog's defense mechanism kicked in. Little green bastard didn't even have a scratch on him. Fezzik, on the other hand, was spitting up all night. I think we both learned an important lesson that night, which he forgot 2 weeks later when he swallowed another frog with the exact same result. Maybe Aussie Shepherds just aren't smart. De Vere, cattle disease. All right, that's a stretch. But my mother-in-law's poodle passed away, and I almost tried an Impossible Burger, which leads us to the most serious of the plagues, when Moses and company really dropped the boom. Makat Bechorot, death of the firstborn. The reason we were there. On June 3rd, Eileen Ma Connor passed away. She wasn't a firstborn. I am, an only child as well. And when she died 30 years after my dad had passed away, I was no longer anyone's son. During her memorial, I did offer to sell the rights to adopt 45-year-old me to any New York Giants loving family. Still waiting on takers. Not like anyone could replace the greatest humans that ever walked this earth. For 5 months, we slowly cleaned out my mom's abundance of magazines, QVC purchases, and Schnauzer statues. Like that 10th plague in the finale of Raiders of the Lost Ark, I felt surrounded by ghosts. But looking back, it wasn't a curse. The all too real plague of COVID meant we were all working and going to school remotely, which meant we got to spend all those precious chaos-filled months amongst the memories of my youth and my dearly departed family members. Amidst 5 dumpsters worth of junk, we found some real pearls. The plastic fire station phone my Uncle Irving bought me when I was already old enough to be a fireman. A picture of my dad telling what could only be a filthy joke to a young Joe Biden. A copy of Uncle Stanley's divorce in a Mexican court. I knew he had a couple of ex-wives. Mexico? That was new. Many, many letters to my mom from some GI she dated in the 1960s, who really was into her, I'll leave that out. The remainder of my Star Wars toys, wrestling figures, comic books, and garbage pail kids. I'd call them collectibles. My wife has another term for them, which I also will not repeat. A Tom Jones ashtray with a topless woman on it. I didn't think my parents had much use for nicotine or What's New Pussycat. The ticket stubs from when my mom and I saw Sisters Rosenzweig and Angels in America on Broadway during one amazing weekend in 1994. I had kept my copy of those ticket stubs too. Not sure she knew that. My beloved immediate family got me through my toughest year. I had to say goodbye to a house that so many of my friends hooked up in during high school. Me, not so much, but I'm glad they were happy. Eventually, we made the exodus out of Delaware and returned to a sales tax existence. Though we were charged by our realtor for leaving behind liquidy black mold and a dead snake. Because of course, Moses used snakes too. Now our not very large Burbank home is filled with these memories. One of the Schnauzer statues guards our tangerine tree. My classic Star Wars and wrestling figures are proudly displayed, like any middle-aged man-child would do. Admittedly, I am a little nervous to actually see what's on Uncle Stanley's Super 8 reels, so I'll leave that task to my sons when they're of legal age. And if any of you smokers are Tom Jones fans, make me an offer.